There's always been a healthy exchange of insults. I think now it's just, it's just American politics. Donald Trump has made American politics a lot more ghetto. So you kind of just want to hold that blonde, balding head up and say, is this your king?
The participants tonight are Donald
Trump and the Democratic nominee for president, Hillary Clinton.
And the Republican nominee for president, Mr. Trump.
Hillary Clinton, the president's wife, had been elected to the Senate from New York State, where the Clintons then called their home. She was well respected within the Senate. She had established herself as a thoughtful and practical senator who could deal with both sides of the aisle. She had, built up another part of her resume as Secretary of State. So enter into the play Donald Trump, who was an unlikely presidential candidate.
Donald Trump is the black president they thought Barack Obama would be. He was in the White House with his 1, 2, 3 baby mamas, with adult film stars and Playboy centerpieces.
Who was accused, who was a womanizer, who couldn't be taken seriously, who had a history of demonizing African-American young men.
He's the convicted felon. He was the one out here acting a stone plumb fool.
Most observers who saw politics from a historical perspective and saw it in a way that would indicate no one like Donald Trump, a basically failed businessman who had been into bankruptcy a number of times and was basically a celebrity reality showman. He was someone who, whatever he said, could be challenged 5 different ways. But he was an outsider in a year which it seemed that the Republican Party wanted someone as an outsider who would talk down to the establishment.
We're calling this opening segment Achieving Prosperity, and central to that is jobs. There are 2 economic realities in America today. There's been a record 6 straight years of job growth, and new census numbers show incomes have increased at a record rate after years of stagnation. Why are you a better choice than your opponent to create the kinds of jobs that will put more money into the pockets of American workers?
Thank you, Lester. Our jobs are fleeing the country. They're going to Mexico. They're going to many other countries.
This is a Donald Trump tie. Maybe it's not close enough, but it's Donald Trump trademark tie. And then you see here that it's made in China.
You look at what China is doing to our country in terms of making our product. They're devaluing their currency, and there's nobody in our government to fight them.
Where are the shirts made? Bangladesh.
Well, it's good. We employ people in Bangladesh.
Ties? Where are the ties
They
made?
have to work
These are
too.
beautiful ties.
They are great ties.
The ties are made in where? China? Ties are made in China.
Trump was a master con man. He was one of the great American con men. He knew how to manipulate. And even when the truth was exposed about him, it seemed not to make a difference, at least with the people who were interested in voting for him.
Let's stop for a second and remember where we were 8 years ago. We had the worst financial crisis, the Great Recession, the worst since the 1930s. That was in large part because of tax policies that slashed taxes on the wealthy, failed to invest in the middle class, took their eyes off of Wall Street, and created a perfect storm. In fact, Donald was one of the people who rooted for the housing crisis. He said back in 2006, gee, I hope it does collapse because then I can go in and buy some and make some money. Well, it did collapse.
That's called business, by the way.
9 million independent experts have looked at what I've proposed and looked at what Donald's proposed. And basically they've said this, that if his tax plan, which would blow up the debt by over $5 trillion and would, in some instances, disadvantage middle-class families compared to the wealthy, were to go into effect, we would lose 3.5 million jobs and maybe have another recession.
Secretary Clinton, you're calling for a tax increase in the wealthiest Americans. I'd like you to further defend that. And Mr. Trump, you're calling for tax cuts for the wealthy. I'd like you to defend that. And this next 2-minute answer goes to you, Mr. Trump.
Well, I'm really calling for major jobs because the wealthy are going to create tremendous jobs. They're going to expand their companies. They're going to do a tremendous job.
I don't think top-down works in America. I think building the middle class, investing in the middle class.
We're cutting taxes for the middle class, and I will tell you, we are cutting them big league for the middle class.
Well, everything you've heard just now from Donald is not true. I'm sorry I have to keep saying this, but he lives in an alternative reality. And it is sort of amusing to hear somebody who hasn't paid federal income taxes in maybe 20 years talking about what he's going to do.
I don't mind releasing. I'm under a routine audit, and it'll be released. And as soon as the audit's finished, it'll be released.
He would just speak over the lies. He would speak over the untruths. And there was a portion of the American public which had not really registered and had always been seen as a small outside group, but was probably a little larger, maybe like a third of the population than Americans had seen.
I will present the facts plainly and honestly. We cannot afford to be so politically correct anymore. I will work with and appoint the best and brightest prosecutors and law enforcement officials to get the job properly done. In this race for the White House, I am the law and order candidate.
I do want to follow up. Stop and frisk was ruled unconstitutional in New York because it largely singled out Black and Hispanic young men.
No, you're wrong. It went before a judge who was a very against police judge. It was taken away from her, and our new mayor, refused to go forward with the case. They would have won an appeal. If you look at it throughout the country, there are many places.
Not quite. In 2013, a district judge ruled it was unconstitutional, saying stop and frisk violated the amendments on unreasonable searches and equal protections.
The argument is that it's a form of racial profiling.
No, the argument is that we have to take the guns away from these people that have them and that are bad people that shouldn't have them. These are felons. These are people that are bad people that shouldn't be.
I think stop and frisk is one of those things that damage the Black community. And when you talk about, just stopping somebody for no reason or just because you suspect, it's usually not rooted in any type of probable cause or any real suspicion. There's plenty of data, especially out of New York City, which was one of the originators, that stop and frisk doesn't lead to decreases in crime. It's been called unconstitutional by I don't know how many different law groups. And when we get to 2016, when Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are debating it, I think most people by then knew that it wasn't an effective deterrent for crime.
I will insist that local jurisdictions return to proven common sense policing measures, such as stop and frisk. Very simple. You stop them and you frisk them.
But remember, Donald started his career back in 1973 being sued by the Justice Department for racial discrimination because he would not rent apartments in one of his developments to African Americans.
Mr. Trump, you can respond, then we're going to move on to the next segment.
I would love to respond. As far as the lawsuit, yes, when I was very young, I went into my father's company, had a real estate company in Brooklyn and Queens, and we, along with many, many other companies throughout the country, it was a federal lawsuit, were sued. We settled the suit with no admission of guilt. It was very easy to do, but they sued many people. I notice you bring that up a lot, and I also notice the very nasty commercials that you do on me in so many different ways, which I don't do on you.
Mr. Trump, let me follow up with you. In 2008, you wrote in one of your books that the most important characteristic of a good leader is discipline. You said if a leader doesn't have it, quote, he or she won't be one for very long. In the days after the first debate, you sent out a series of tweets from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m., including one that told people to check out a sex tape. Is that the discipline of a good leader?
No, it wasn't check out a sex tape. It was just take a look at the person that she built up to be this wonderful Girl Scout, who was no Girl Scout. By the way, just so you understand.
The question from Patrice was about, are you both modeling positive and appropriate behaviors for today's youth? We received a lot of questions online, Mr. Trump, about the tape that was released on Friday. As you can imagine,
I moved on her, and I failed. I'll admit it. Whoa. I did try and f her. She was married.
It's huge news, Sarah.
No, Nancy. Yeah. No, this was marriages, and I moved on her very heavily. In fact, I took her out furniture shopping. She wanted to get some furniture. I said, I'll show you where they have some nice furniture. I took her out furniture. I moved on her like a bitch, but I couldn't get there, and she was married. Then all of a sudden, I see her. She's now got the big phony tits and everything. She's totally changed her look. I better use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the you can do anything.
Pull the hell.
Hello, how are you? Hi.
you called what you said locker room banter. You described kissing women without consent, grabbing their genitals. That is sexual assault. You bragged that you have sexually assaulted women. Do you understand that?
No, I didn't say that at all. I don't think you understood what was said. This was locker room talk. I'm not proud of it. I apologize to my family. I apologize to the American people. Certainly, I'm not proud of it. But this is locker room talk.
Just for the record, though, are you saying that what you said on that bus 11 years ago, that you did not actually kiss women without consent or grope women without consent?
I have great respect for women. Nobody has more respect for women than I do.
So for the record, you're saying you never did that?
I said things that, frankly, you hear these things are said. And I was embarrassed by it, but I have tremendous respect for women.
Have you ever done those things?
Women have respect for me.
Mr. Trump, this year, Secretary Clinton became the first woman nominated for president by a major party. Earlier this month, you said she doesn't have, quote, a presidential look. She's standing here right now. What did you mean by that?
She doesn't have the look. She doesn't have the stamina. I said she doesn't have the stamina. And I don't believe she does have the stamina. To be president of this country, you need tremendous stamina.
The quote was, I just don't think she has a presidential look.
Wait a minute, unless you asked me a question. Did you ask me a question? You have to be able to negotiate our trade deals. You have to be able to negotiate, that's right, with Japan, with Saudi Arabia. I mean, can you imagine we're defending Saudi Arabia, and with all of the money they have, we're defending them and they're not paying? All you have to do is speak to them. Wait, you have so many different things you have to be able to do, and I don't believe that Hillary has the stamina.
Let's let her respond.
Well, as soon as he travels to 112 countries and negotiates a peace deal, a ceasefire, a release of dissidents, an opening of new opportunities in nations around the world, or even spends 11 hours testifying in front of a congressional committee, he can talk to me about stamina.
The world, let me tell you.
One thing, Lester, is, you know, he tried to switch from looks to stamina, but this is a man who has called women pigs, slobs, and dogs.
I'd look her right in that fat, ugly face of hers. She ate like a pig.
A person who's flat-chested is very hard to be a 10.
So you treat women with respect?
I can't say that either.
All right, good.
And someone who has said pregnancy is an inconvenience to employers, who has said women...
Trump denied the charge, but according to a 2004 interview, on the question of maternal leave, he said, quote, whether people want to say that or not, the fact is it is an inconvenience for a person that is running a business.
Women don't deserve equal pay unless they do as good a job as men.
I want to get paid the same as a man, and I think you understand that. So if you become president, will a woman make the same as a man? And do I get to choose what I do with my body?
You're going to make the same if you do as good a job. You're going to make the same if you do as good a job, and I happen to be pro-life.
And one of the worst things he said was about a woman in a beauty contest. He loves beauty contests, supporting them and hanging around them.
I'll go backstage before a show. Yes. And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else. And, no men are anywhere. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. I'm inspecting. I want to make sure that
like
everything is good.
You're there.
Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? They're standing there with no clothes. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible-looking women. And so I sort of get away with things like that. Excuse me. My turn. Such a nasty woman.
Trust they were not attractive enough for
I did not
them
say
to be
that.
assaulted.
I did not say that.
Believe me, she would not be my first choice, that I can tell you. It couldn't have happened. It didn't happen. And she would not have been the chosen one. She would not have been the chosen one. Nobody has more respect for women than I do. Nobody. Nobody has more respect.
Please, everybody.
One of you will not win this election. So my final question to you tonight, are you willing to accept the outcome as the will of the voters?
You have been warning at rallies recently that this election is rigged and that Hillary Clinton is in the process of trying to steal it from you.
I will look at it at the time. I'm not looking at anything now. I'll look at it at the time. What I've seen is so bad. First of all, the media is so dishonest and so corrupt, and the pile-on is so amazing. The New York Times, they actually wrote an article about it, that they don't even care. It's so dishonest, and they've poisoned the minds of the voters. But unfortunately for them, I think the voters are seeing through it. I think they're going to see through it. We'll find out on November 8th, but I think they're going to see through it.
But, sir, there's
excuse me, Chris, if you look at your voter rolls, you will see millions of people that are registered to vote. Millions. This isn't coming from me. This is coming from Pew Report and other places. Millions of people that are registered and be registered to vote. So, let me just give you one other thing. So I talk about the corrupt media. I talk about the millions of people. I'll tell you one other thing. She shouldn't be allowed to run. She's guilty of a very, very serious crime. She should not be allowed to run. And just in that respect, I say it's rigged, because she should never have been allowed to run for the presidency based on what she did with emails and so many other things.
But, sir, there is a tradition in this country. In fact, one of the prides of this country is the peaceful transition of power, and that no matter how hard fought a campaign is, that at the end of the campaign, that the loser concedes to the winner. Not saying that you're necessarily going to be the loser or the winner, but that the loser concedes to the winner, and that the country comes together in part for the good of the country. Are you saying you're not prepared now to commit to that principle?
What I'm saying is that I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
Well,
okay?
Chris.
People watch us. They watch everything about how we communicate, what we like, who we like, and they find ways to get to these individuals. And then you have these messages coming at you online from profiles that look like us, but they are actually not us. It's easy to fall into the trap.
And so when the election was called for Donald Trump, and you saw very clearly that Hillary Clinton had won the popular vote and Donald Trump won the Electoral College, this was not the first time in our history this had happened. The Electoral College most definitely was introduced in this country as usual, as everything else, it has a racist component to it.